Dober večer, dobrodošli v Cukrarni. Welcome to Cukrarna and of course in Ljubljana Art Weekend, which is really important, first edition. Thanks to all collaborators and of course Piera Ravnikar, who was initiator of this idea, and the board, which was all the time with all the participants, all the galleries, all the art spaces, public spaces, which have helped that this event now is taking place. This is very important because we think that collecting private galleries are part of the art system, not only public spaces. In Slovenia, Ljubljana, we have, I can say about this a little bit problems, but with this kind of event like is this one, we want to make a step further. So I think it's very important that this event will have procedure, it will have another edition next year, and it will help us that we will maintain and a little bit broader, we will have a little broader picture of what art system is and how important collecting and private enterprises and private initiatives in this sense are needed. So thank you very much to Piera and all her team. Thank you very much to Barbara Čeferin, Alinka Gregorič, Mateja Demšič, Roman Uranek, all who have been in organizational board of this event, to all people who attend now. Maybe some other will join us during this lecture, in this presentation, and I welcome you so much that you have time and will that you will give us some your thoughts. And I will give now the floor to Piera Ravnikar, the initiator of this event. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Blaž. I would like to use this opportunity as well to thank everyone who was involved in the first edition of the Ljubljana Art Weekend. I would like to thank all the galleries, I would like to thank all the museums, all the project spaces, collectors, collaborators. I would like to thank all the artists, I would like to thank all the curators, producers, workers, co-workers, so everyone basically who was making this event possible. I would like to thank Alinka Gregorič, the artistic director of Cukrarna, and to her team, because for always being kind and supportive, it meant a lot. Thank you to the program committee once again. Thank you, Alinka, again. Thank you, Mateja Demšič. Thank you, Roman Uranek. Thank you, Barbara Čeferin, and thank you, Anja Radović. I thank to my team as well. Thank you, Eva and another Eva, for believing in me on the way and supporting me on the road. Thank you to Rokmar, who was always, again, supportive and being a designer of this beautiful visual language. Thank you all the media partners, the local ones and the international ones, for taking this story and taking it far and wide in a way. Thank you to all the kind supporters, the sponsors, and especially I would like to thank Rico and Polona Loshin. Thank you for supporting us and to support this very event, and to the Austrian Cultural Forum for always supporting us in a way again. So I would really like, I wish and I hope that this initiative, Ljubljana Art Weekend, will grow and blossom with time, and I hope that it will try with the same kind of spirit as all the other weekend initiatives. Let it be Beijing, Zurich or Montreal. And I thank you for coming tonight or today and to support it. Without you, I guess everything we do is pointless. So we need you, we need people, because peoples are communities. And so enjoy, have fun, get inspired, learn something new, connect, reconnect. Whatever you do, just have fun. And I'm really, really happy that we have the opportunity to open the first edition of the Ljubljana Art Weekend. I hope we will thrive. Thank you.
now Director of Cultural Affairs of City of Ljubljana, Mateja Demšić. She and her team and City of Ljubljana supports this project.
Dober večer, spoštovani gostje. Good evening, dear guests. I'll be very, very short. Let me express my gratitude in the name of City of Ljubljana. First to Piera, who initiated the great idea that became a reality in a best possible way. For you who came to Ljubljana, please enjoy art, buy art, be back. Before that, enjoy the city. However, I need to say that this art weekend is a groundbreaking event, not only for Ljubljana, but also for Slovene art community. That's why I strongly believe that next year, at the same time, most probably in Cukrarna, if not anywhere else, we'll meet again. Thank you and enjoy the evening and enjoy the weekend.
Please, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Huh? Okay. So, good evening. Many thanks for the invitation, Alenka, Piera. Thanks Ljubljana for having us. My name is Florian Langhammer. I'm the owner of art magazine Collector's Agenda, based in Vienna, with a core team in Vienna and Berlin. Our focus is on artist studio visits. And well, Piera and I met recently, and she was so kind and invite me over and bring a fantastic panel of people from Vienna, from the art scene. We are discussing today kind of how a thriving, like how a collector base can also help and live in an art scene, and how it creates like a thriving art scene. We don't want to make Vienna overly an example of this, but we happen to be all living in Vienna, and I think Vienna has experienced quite an interesting dynamic over the past few years. So I think a lot has happened there. So I think it's also a good example in this way, kind of as a case study, to look a little bit at kind of the things that happened, things that maybe weren't around 15 years ago, that only emerged maybe 5 years ago. So I think this is interesting. We also make an effort of not making this just about Vienna, 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 but also, you know, we've all traveled. Andreas has been on residencies, for example, to also look at other cities, of course. So with that said, short introduction who you have here on the panel. So we have Elsa König, daughter of Christine König. Maybe some people will know Christine König gallery, one of the major galleries in Vienna. And Elsa is, so to speak, the next generation gallerist of Christine König gallery. And then we have Saskia Wiesenthal. She is a hotel manager from Altstadt, Vienna. It's a very special hotel in the way that the hotel is kind of it entertains a lot of collaborations with the art scene, and we'll talk about this a bit more also later. But it's not just a hotel; it is a hotel that is very ingrained in the art scene in Vienna. And she also runs a collection for the hotel, so also is a collector in that way. Then we've got Lotte Puschmann. She's an independent curator and art consultant, also very active in the city, mediating between art enthusiasts, artists, gallerists, and so on. And then we've got Andreas Duscha, artist, and needs an artist also on the panel. And he works in multiple media. One of his focuses is what he's employing mirror as a tool for his art, and also making use of photographic processes. He's also teaching at the Academy of Applied Arts in Vienna for the department for photography. So we've got 4 great discussion partners. In case you were missing 2 names that were on the list, we had originally Esther Stocker listed, an artist from South Tyrol, also living and working in Vienna. She cannot make it, unfortunately, and we had Franziska Resinger, a young collector. She has fallen sick yesterday. So I hope you'll do with us. So just to kick off the discussion, Andreas, as the artist, I'd like to start with you, just because you come from Germany and originally, and when did you arrive in Vienna, and what did you find in Vienna as a young artist, an artist starting to make a career in artistic production?
Good evening, and thanks for having us. I arrived in Vienna like a long time ago in the year 2000, and in that time everything was kind of different, so there have been not so many galleries as nowadays, and the city was a little bit more old-fashioned and sleepy, I would say. And now in the last 5 years, I think the things little shook up, and I think we're on a good way, and and for me, I came for studying art there, I have to say.
So you were studying art.
Yeah.
That's what you came for. And like, how did it all start? Like, what was there any support given in Vienna for you as a young would-to-be artist, or like what's different from, like, in contrast in the past from what you find today?
It depends, I have to say. So for me, it was just like, because I was studying psychology as well, and before I was studying political science. So for me, just being an artist was such an overwhelming thing, because I was just like, I had no clue how it really works. So that took me around like 2 years to figure that out. That you don't have to go to courses, that everything is kind of free. And in that time, it was really kind of free. So nowadays, I can just really make a good comparison, because I teach now at the university, and it's way more schoolish in a way nowadays, and the support there's way more support. And it's very easy to say, like when I started studying art, we have like a thing, it's called open house. It's like der Rundgang, where the academy opens its doors to the public. And when I started, there was a huge discussion if we be a part of it, and if we represent like the political system which is behind the academy. So there was a huge political discussion about it. And I've been to the Rundgang like 3 years ago, and I had the feeling I'm on a small version of Art Basel, because everybody was just like standing there, had created their own little booth. So I think it became kind of more market orientated, and the artists are way better in selling themselves, or it's way more a thing you have to. And that was totally different back in the days.
So we thought we'd just start kind of moving through, and by that also making short introduction, also indirectly by just asking for how you arrived in Vienna, if you were like not from Vienna. In this case, Lotte also from Germany arriving. How did you find Vienna when you arrived? When was that, and kind of what was the experience you had, and kind of how do you observe this Vienna changing towards this lively place for art that it is today?
Oh my God, it's very loud. I'm sorry. Thanks for having us, first of all. I arrived in Vienna 12 years ago, and I used to work in fashion before. So I started to work in a gallery, like front desk kind of, and I worked it out for myself. And I had the same feeling that Andreas had as well, that it was way more closed. The whole scene was way more closed. It was not that easy to get into, and it was way smaller in general, I think. It was opened up a lot, and all these independent places that opened up in the last years that were not even thought of.
What happened? What was the turning point? Was there a moment where you're like, okay, something's changing now?
Oh man, I don't know. I think it's a few years ago when, for example, the art fairs were changing. I mean, there was like the parallel, by the way. I don't know how many years it exactly exists now, but I think that was kind of a step where the independent places took over, and it's an art fair which is not only for galleries, but also for independent places and for artists alone. So they have the possibility to present their works. And I think around that time, there was kind of a change in the city.
So when was that? When was the first parallel?
Yeah,
Six
I don't
years
even
ago?
know. 6 years ago, something like that? Yeah.
Yeah. So parallel is an event that has emerged as a parallel art fair, but not so much, less with a classical art fair character, on the occasion of Vienna Contemporary, which is usually early September. So that was, and usually takes place in kind of rundown or like about to be demolished or thoroughly renovated buildings. And so, yeah, it was quite a different experience, like drawing people to an art fair which didn't feel like a commercial place, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know, it's not about, exactly, it's not that commercial. I mean, they try to be, and they evolved over the years. I mean, they try to be more commercial, I think. But I think around that time, like 6 years ago, I think there was like a turning point where all these independent places opened up in the city. Yeah, they're running until now, so they got more. Yeah.
So, Saskia, what, with the hotel, I already hinted at it, that you have a bit of a different hotel than the random hotel. Could you explain a little bit like what you do as a hotel, how you connect with the art community? Because also as a hotel, you are doing something to live in that art scene in Vienna.
Well, hello, first of all. Yeah, my father founded the hotel 31 years ago. And he used to work in finance, and he traveled a lot. And when he stopped his work as controller, he started his own hotel and wanted to create a place where people feel at home away from home. So that was his first marketing claim as well. And he started collecting art when he was 18 years old. And the hotel was not only a place for travelers, but also where he wanted to put up his art collection. And yeah, so for more than 30 years, we've had this hotel with art included already. He always went to buy art at auctions or directly from university evenings, like the one that Andreas said before, the open university evenings. We always also have a space in the ground floor that we rent for meetings, but it's also available for young artists without a gallery. They can come up with their ideas, and sometimes if we like it, and if the artwork fits our hotel, then they're able to have an exhibition there. Yeah, and so also with our rooms, we have 62 rooms now, and all the rooms are differently designed by different people from areas like fashion designers, product designers, architects, but also artists. So they're very individual, and they bring in their personality and their view on how they perceive Vienna or the life in Vienna. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think it's really it's great what you do as a hotel there, and I think you mentioned this, that you've got this space also where you're showing.
Yeah.
You're showing work, you're participating at festivals like the Foto Wien Photo Festival was one of the program points out of 140 in the program calendar. So, but I'd be also interested in what role does the hotel play in potentially reaching out to an international audience, like tourism, for example, art as a tourism destination also? Like, do people come for, like, do you feel that the people who come to your hotel have a greater affinity towards visiting the art and culture scene, or especially the art scene in Vienna, or like, do you see a difference between the types of people who come to you versus some of the other fine hotels in Vienna?
Yeah, well, we have I think it's a different kind of atmosphere if you have real works on the walls, and it becomes more like you can live with the art. It's not like a gallery where you can see it just on the white wall, but you have it with all the furniture, and you can see it in a normal setting, like at a home. So, and then it's easier to imagine also having an artwork at home, maybe. Yeah, and I do think that they are more interested in art as well. Yeah, we also offer kind of an art package where we organize museum tickets and also studio visits with artists. And I also do guided tours through our house and show them their rooms. And because we also say we don't only have an art collection, but also a room collection, because all the rooms have their own stories. And people really like to do that. They're very interested to see the rooms and listen to the stories and also see the artworks in this special surrounding.
Great. So artist studio visits, something we'll definitely come on to a bit later, but now also to haul in Elsa into the discussion. Well, you are from Austria, from Vienna also? Yes. And well, it's a kind of a probably stupid question to say, how did you come to art with a mother, such a successful gallerist as a mother? But still, you would have had a choice at some point to say, well, I get more involved in art, or I do something completely else, and maybe I'll keep art as a private leisure, something I may be exposed to enough already by the family, I do something else. Like, how did you come to art, and then also be interested how you actually, like, how you experience what's happening in Vienna in the art scene?
Hello, my name is Elsa, and as Florian already said, my mother is running this gallery, Christine König Gallery, since more than 3 decades. She opened her gallery in 1989 when I was 3 years old. So, of course, I grew up surrounded by art and with artists. And at some point, I decided as a teenager that I would like to study law. And after 2 days, actually, at law school, I realized, okay, no way, that's not my world at all. Unfortunately, maybe, because I guess it's an amazing opportunity in life to have studied law, but for me, it was not ideal at all. So
lots of lawyers are building art collections.
I know, yeah. So I studied art history in the end. I focused on contemporary art. I love contemporary art. That's the world I live in. That's that's what I love. And the way how Vienna changed, I would like to continue what you said some years ago with like all those independent spaces that opened in Vienna, like those off spaces. Something kind of broke up. There was this old generation of established galleries for like 40, 50, 30 years, like my mother's generation, for example. But then at some point, 10 years ago, maybe, all those off spaces opened, and then young professionals opened galleries, like not just the non-commercial off spaces, but like professional galleries. And that happened maybe 5 or 6 or 7 years ago. And before that time, everybody in Vienna was already complaining a little bit, saying nothing new is coming up, and something like young people should come and start and doing their business in the art world. So I think that was kind of a breaking point. In 2017, we also opened a new space just around the corner from our gallery, König 2, by Robbie Greif. We have this director from Berlin, initially from Berlin. He moved to Vienna in 2013. And yes, and then he opened this kind of off space. I mean, it's not an off space, it's like a project space where artists for the very first time in Vienna have like solo presentations. That's kind of this
You're kind of
younger...
fast tracking all the things I wanted to ask you.
Oh.
It's like so actually maybe I think the König 2 I definitely wanted to talk about, because I think it is probably hitting striking an interesting chord between this kind of established gallery. It still has an established gallery in the back, but it also is something new in a way, something younger. As you say, you said off space, then you corrected yourself. It's not quite an off space, but it's exactly this kind of mixture that's somehow attractive, and it seems to be happening at the right moment. But maybe to go back to that moment, because you said it's like off spaces are emerging, young galleries opening, and people said, well, Vienna doesn't have anything new, like something new must be coming. Who was saying that? Was it the established art scene, the elderly collectors and art scene goers, or was it because there were new people arriving to the scene, like young people who felt like underserviced or underserved in what they found in Vienna? You know, who was calling for this change?
Maybe the artists, yeah.
The artists themselves?
Yeah. It always starts with us. So it's, yeah, because it was kind of like, as Elsa mentioned, there have been some very well-established galleries, but there was not really something new on the block which my generation, or even the younger generation, felt represented by. So, and that was the reason why something had to change, and then eventually and luckily it did. So, and I think things come in waves. So there was one wave when Immanuel Laya, for example, opened his gallery. He was one of the first. And then a couple of years ago, I think 5 years ago, 6 years ago, a bunch of young galleries opened, and that shook up the scene as well, because it's as well good for the old galleries, because then they have to get their game one step beyond, because they're the new guys on the block. And so I think it's a win-win situation for everybody if there comes competition.
I think maybe also there was a growing interest in from younger collectors. They were not seeing like what they wanted to see, and they brought kind of money and interest into the game, and so the new spaces were able to evolve quite quickly. I think maybe this art scene opened up because it got more lifestyle-ish, or more people were interested in art than before. In my opinion. So maybe that's a game changer too.
Mm-hmm. So also interesting actually that thinking about it, because you just said, Andreas, that the artists themselves felt it needed also something, and a younger generation of collectors or potential collectors or art enthusiasts, maybe to start with, were calling for it. But also a lot of artists were actually the initiators of the off spaces, right? So Pina, for example, is an artist-run off space, and there are a lot of artists who actually got behind it and kind of made the change they wanted to see, apparently.
But I think the off spaces run by artists are really the non-commercial ones, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I'd be curious to what degree because you said it's a win-win situation for everyone. In how far are the commercial galleries winning? Do the commercial galleries need the off-space scene to work as a whole cosmos in a city? Because we're talking about what enlivens an thriving art community. So just be interested in the dynamics between an off-space, which could, by feeling, not be further away than a gallery, but then both are showing art and mediating art. So, is there any relation between them?
I think artists need exhibition space, because if you don't exhibit your art, nobody knows about your art. So any place which is like in a normal setting is good for artists, because then we can show what we do. And when we show what we do, people get interested in it. And then things start getting bigger or getting another direction or whatever. So I think for the artists, it's absolutely necessary not just to present the work in a commercial gallery, because it's a huge difference if I do a show in a commercial gallery, or if I do it in a Kunstverein, or if I do it in a museum. So there are huge differences. And I think for a very vibrant art scene, it's absolutely important that you have a very young, self-organized thing, and that you and that climbs up to like a normal museum, which is totally different in everything, like how a show is organized, what is demanded from the artist, what the artist has to give. So that's a huge difference. But I think it needs everything for it, because if you don't show your work, nobody will know about you, then you won't get a gallery, you won't get a show anywhere. So it's very needed. Magazines as well, critics. It's a huge, it's a whole system, which is...
Curators,
yeah. Of course, they're one of the main important figures in a vibrant art scene.
So maybe now we can talk about König 2 also, because it's like on the brink between what we've talked between off-space and commercial galleries. So what's the idea behind that? Like, you said already that you like to attract artists who haven't shown before somewhere, right? And they can become part of the gallery roster, but they do not need to.
Yeah,
right?
not necessarily, but it happens. And it's this kind of cubicle, little white cube. It's tiny, the place is tiny, and it's visible from the outside 24/7. Actually, it's not open. You have to go to the gallery or ring the gallery and say, I wanna walk in. But all exhibitions are site-specific, and they are installed in a way that you can see actually everything and experience everything from the outside 24/7. Like you can walk by at nighttime as well. And the criterion is that it's an artist that has most of the time never shown before in Vienna. So often it's like artists that are not known in the city yet. And it's always a solo presentation. So also to focus like on one specific artist.
Okay. And the type of collector or the type of visitor, did you have from the start also someone specific in mind to match that, or was it
to match a collector?
To match to match the profile of these emerging artists who haven't shown in Vienna before? So it was deliberately also targeting a new audience in the art scene, or did it just follow?
Good question. I mean, the thing is, it has to be a young artist. So of course, it's something new that we bring in. But that's it.
And interesting that you mentioned that it's like 24/7 open in a way. You can look in it, but you don't have to go inside. There is something also, we as an art magazine, we've made it as a bit of as a mission to build a low barrier entry to get involved with art through actually focusing on artist studio visits and not writing about art, but about like writing from our conversations with artists. So we don't talk about the artists, but we talk with the artists about their art, and by that help mediate a little bit and understand art, become a bit more confident to talk about art as someone who's interested but maybe not proficient, and kind of an art scene goer for a long time, but maybe new to it. So, and in that context, when I talk to people about what we do as a magazine, then I also say that a lot of people I feel are a bit intimidated of entering an art gallery. If we talk about a new generation of collectors and attracting them, and we say that collecting is an important basis to support an artist community and of course to support artistic production, then I wondered, is that something that you can also, as a gallerist, how you observe that you have some people who are like maybe not that they don't like to enter a gallery so voluntarily, but rather like keep it a bit as a distance and look inside, but not feel the pressure, because that's what I hear from a lot of people, that galleries can be quite intimidating to someone who is not induced in the art world, and they think all kinds of things are happening in that place. Once they enter, they are somehow put to a test or something.
I've heard of that problem already. It's a difficult topic, I guess. Galleries are here to exhibit, but also to mediate art and to have people, like the staff in the gallery is forced to talk to the people about what they can see. Yes, actually it is like that, because that's the goal of a gallery is not just to sell art, but also to
transfer knowledge,
to present art, and also like to show it to the people and to talk to the people about it. So actually, that's how it should be. And so what I know, that my mother from the beginning on, she always she had like this series of conversations and lunch lectures. She always invited people from all over the world to come for a lecture, and then just to present something or to talk about a certain topic in order to get this kind of to get the people not to be so intimidated by like this white cube or gallery. I don't know. Maybe I'm the wrong person to talk about that, because for me it's a natural thing.
Yeah.
I walk into a gallery like, yeah.
I can
And I
relate
want to
to
ask
that,
questions.
to the barrier of a gallery where you, or also of an art fair where you have to think 2 days about what to wear when you go to the opening. And I think the Parallel and all the off spaces, they did a good job to make it more accessible, and also an art space that is visible 24/7. Yeah, because you don't have to think so much about it. It becomes more natural, and if you connect it with a party, and it's not only about the art, and you have to have knowledge before you go in, but you can go there to meet people and just to have a nice evening, then it makes it more easier to look at the art and just, yeah, perceive it while you're there. It becomes more natural than if you go to a gallery and somebody starts talking to you, and I mean the prices are I don't know where, and young people might feel they're not in the right place when they enter a gallery.
I think the events are quite an important part, because you're not alone there. So maybe there's a different, like, yeah, you go there because of something else, and you can like nebenbei, you can just like on the sideline experience the art and not be in the focus of the gallerist working there or the person who's sitting there and looking at you and focusing only on you. I think that's an important thing.
I think there were two really interesting initiatives. They're already a couple of years ago back, but I remember Kunsthalle Wien did Early Birds. I don't know whether you remember that. It's like an early evening or like after work party thing where like primarily addressed to the young people, and there were actually young artists from the city creating works at the party. Some of them were coming in real life, and others were exhibited there, and it was like completely low entry to engaging with art. And of course, you had the friends of the artists there as well, and so like this whole entourage, and it felt quite natural. And then I think Albertina, the major exhibition, like a major institution, they did Albert and Tina, but. Yeah. Does that still exist?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
I've never been there.
Yeah.
But was this related to art?
It was related to art, but I think it was a little bit
Sounded very cheesy.
slightly different. Yeah. But anyway, I think those formats they have an interesting dynamic and probably a right.
Do you remember? I don't know the name. What it was? It was in the Kunsthaus, and there were artists that were able to sell their work, no matter what size or what format.
Art market?
Art market,
yeah.
But each piece was 100 euros.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, but that was quite good, because you could just walk through and buy art and talk to the artists, because they exhibited themselves. Yeah, I thought that was good.
And the price point topic, I mean, I think this is so important, because I think the people are so afraid that they cannot afford the art which is shown, and you don't know it, and most of the galleries, they don't have price tags. So I think that's a big part of the fear of galleries.
I think there's one, maybe a bit away from younger collectors, or like irrespective of young or more established. I think in what's happening in many cities, also in Vienna, is that there are those gallery clusters emerging, which facilitates a lot also that, generally facilitates the scene, because I mean, you're part of a cluster as well in Schleifmühlgasse. Like usually the galleries open in sync with each other, so you have like a little, almost like a street festival, people being out on the street and like hopping the galleries, and then 2 weeks later another cluster opens. So there's always something going on. Has that been something that has always been around, or how has that emerged, this insight that it's...
As far as I know, when my mother moved from the first district, where she had initially started her gallery in 1989, she moved at around 2000 to Schleifmühlgasse. At that time, that area was not established at all. It was like super fucked up. And the first gallery over there was Georg Hagel. And he asked my mother and Gabriele Sen to join the neighborhood. So both of them moved in there. And then Kerstin Engholm joined as well, and some other galleries. And yeah, after like 2 or 3 years, it was this kind of accepted gallery area, one of the main gallery streets in Vienna, Schleifmühlgasse, Eschenbachgasse and Seilerstätte. And what especially Georg Hagel at that time had in mind was like galleries should join forces and be together compared to like in other cities like in London or in New York, Chelsea, in London, Soho. So these were kind of the ideas he had in mind. And I think it was a brilliant idea because happenings take place every few weeks in one of the 3 areas, 3 main areas. There are of course other places as well, but yeah, I think these clusters make sense. And yeah, now during the pandemic, of course, everything changed, and we had like opening times for the entire day, which was not ideal because this character of an event was kind of missing. You know, people were coming and going back and forth, but it was never this kind of feeling that you are joining an event. Yeah. And now we try to switch it again from 6 to 9, which is much better, of course.
Yeah, keep it narrow.
Exactly.
Yeah. Before it was like, during that time, it felt a bit more like a private visit. Somehow.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. There were 2 things I wanted to ask. Like, we were already talking briefly about artist studios, and so I'd be curious, Andreas, how do you feel about artist studio visits as part, because it's also, we talk about events, and bringing people to an artist studio is, in a way, it's an event. People go there because they cannot go there by themselves, or they don't know, they don't have contact, so they're brought there. How does it feel for you to be like people entering the studio? Is it like, because people will react very differently to that? Like artists, different artists.
It depends, I would say. Like, it depends on who is coming. If it's colleagues, for example, it's normally just very easy. Like, we talk about shit is going on, and it's when artists meet, it's more about techniques, and it's not like, because we don't sell our art normally to each other. So, and if curators come, I think it depends totally on the artist. I think I would say I'm an artist who is okay if people come to the studio and we talk about what I do, because I like talking about what I do. So that's okay for me. I think there are other artists who don't like it, then they normally don't invite people. Yeah, as I said, I think every artist is different. I think what is kind of a myth, but that comes as well like from the 60s and 70s, is that sacred room. The artist studio is kind of like a holy room, and a lot of people don't even need a studio anymore because they work just on computers or organize their things and get them produced by professionals. So it's, in my case, for example, it's a work and leisure space.
But you work a lot with chemicals and stuff. So how do you, because you're working with the mirrors, and how do you show that when the people are coming to your studio?
Oh, then the work is done, and it's not so toxic that people are in danger.
No.
Or sometimes pretend that they are in danger to give it an extra kick. But I need a studio. In my case, I need a studio because my praxis involves a lot of chemicals and dark room and things like that, so I can't do it in my living room. So yeah, I have a studio, but it's not a problem.
But they cannot see your process in a way.
No, but I won't know. No, I don't like that. I don't like that people come and watch me doing art. That's a private thing. I don't like that.
Yeah, because if we talk about art as an event, art as an experience, we're not far from people visiting the studio and seeing it as an experience, and kind of the artist being somehow put on display. And
what I think was kind of interesting for me, sorry to interrupt, but when you all spoke about how things, for me as an artist, I have to say I really liked the times of the pandemic because people were talking about art. It's not about that event thing. Everybody comes, gets a glass of wine, and chit-chats about the last whatever. And I think it was way more focused on art, and I liked that. And I know it's kind of important to have like an opening and to have like a party, but I think it wasn't that bad. I think maybe just start at 5 and then continue open end or whatever, just like to find a solution. Because I think that there was a time, especially before the pandemic, when everything was really getting eventy, when it was like really everything was an event and people were just like chasing around the globe and see you on that art fair. So it was kind of like very moving away from what's about art, was moving into an event party place. And that, I think, that was good and maybe helped us all to come a little bit back to what the main purpose is. But maybe artists becoming conservatives now.
Well, with growing age, you know. Lotte, you are obviously also bringing artists, collectors, art enthusiasts together, also, of course, visiting galleries with them, mediating works and so on, as an art consultant. What are ways for you to bring people to art? Like we talked about, you know, the barriers to entry, you know, fear of galleries. We talked about artist studio visits as a way of introducing people to art. It's like, what ways are you, like, how do you usually work and to bring people together and bond with art?
Okay, well, there must be a minimum of interest in the beginning. Something to start with, exactly. And then kind of like getting to know maybe the taste or the direction in which it should go. And I like people. Many people kind of like the personal contact to an artist or to the gallery that I cannot. That maybe the step is smaller for them, and then to go alone, and they feel safer with their decisions, and to go to a gallery or to an artist when I'm with them.
Do you take them in small groups or individually, you and that person?
Differently, but in the beginnings, actually, because you asked how I initiate that, or like or maybe how people begin to collect, then it's mostly alone, because they're really insecure most of the time about their what's good, what they want to see, what they like for themselves. So. Fairs are not that good. And for me, by the way, not the best place to do that.
An art fair?
Yeah, because it's not a very private surrounding, and the people are very focused on the sales. So that's kind of a thing that interrupts this process of getting to know what art you really like or something. In my case,
too busy somehow and too.
Yeah, and they expect the purchase.
But as you put out art fairs, what role do art fairs play in the city? I mean, Vienna now has 3 art fairs, or well, we've got an art week. We got an art fair like Vienna, Vienna Contemporary. We got Parallel somehow and Spark, as a new fair with the second edition this year, second edition of Spark. So Spark in end of May, end of March, was it, right? And it was June last year, I think. Yeah. So they haven't quite found a time, but somehow in the first half of the year, and then September Parallel and Vienna Contemporary. So we've got 3 fairs in the city. What do fairs do for an art scene? Vienna, is it more like inward? Is it more outward looking? Is it stimulating art travel, tourism, or like, how do you?
I guess a lot has changed now in the last 2 years. But interesting enough is that Vienna has started this new art fair, Spark Art Fair, last year, with a focus on solo presentations, which is an amazing concept also for an art fair. And an art fair is all about sales, but so far it was always difficult, like, to go and see everything. And in this case, you could just, as a visitor, focus on like one artist, one project, one booth, one gallery. And still, in the end, it's all about sales.
But it brings a bit of quietness
and focus
art
and
fair, yeah.
and like real interest, and not just, you know, hopping from one booth to the other and trying to find a name that you're familiar with or something like that, but just getting into one artist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that makes it. Is there any art fair followed by that example, or has Spark been completely new with this? I wonder.
I think so. I mean, there are projects like Art Basel Unlimited, where there's like a focus on each artist,
more
or Freeze
spacious works, but
Masters. Of course, there are examples like that, but not like a specific art fair where there's.
The ABC in Berlin has the
yeah,
same,
that's how-
exactly
that's what
the
it
same
used to be.
concept, actually.
Yes, true. But it doesn't exist anymore, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah, didn't work out so well.
As a collector, for example, Saskia, how do you experience going to Spark as opposed to another art fair? Is this concept working for collectors?
Well, I like to go to art fairs to talk to people. I've never bought an artwork at an art fair, to be honest. But I like to visit galleries also that I know. I like to visit the artists maybe that are there, and just talk about their newest projects and their plans. Yeah, it's for me. It's more about
relationship
communication.
building and communication.
Yeah.
We so far didn't talk about one format that has, I think, been quite successful working for Vienna, which is Curated By. So Curated By is a festival also happening in September, and with it 23 galleries participating, something around that. And well, instead of me also explaining it, maybe you're participating in Curated By. Can you explain the concept and why
Yes,
it's so innovative or so interesting for the city?
So Curated By was started, I think, in 2009. So since quite a long time. And the idea behind was to invite international curators to curate one specific exhibition in each gallery with an overall topic. Which is also the idea to focus like on a specific topic or theme or project, instead of just every gallery has I think the main idea was just to focus on to put the focus on something, instead of just, as I said before, with the art fairs, to walk around and see everything, but in the end you have no idea about anything. So to put the focus, and that's also in contrast to like this, just the commercial side of the art market, or like of the gallery scene, of the art scene, in order to put like this intellectual kind of direction into a gallery festival. That was the idea.
Yeah. What's really striking is that those exhibitions happening at that time in galleries, they don't really have any commercial appeal and no commercial ambition.
They would like to have a commercial ambition, but most of the time it doesn't work.
Exactly. Yeah.
But it's okay, because it's about networking, it's about inviting and bringing curators from all over the world to the city, having a lot of critics. So especially in contrast to like all the art fairs or like everything else that is happening, it's a good focus once a year to have like this Curated By festival in Vienna. That's what I believe, and that's why it exists already since such a long time.
Yeah. Any other words about Curated By?
I think it's a nice thing that a lot of curators from different countries come to Vienna, that you see art you wouldn't see if there would not be Curated By. I know that it's kind of like, as well, like a political thing in the city or between the galleries, which I'm not interested in as an artist, but I think it's a good thing. I think it's very good if some like, and there, as I said, like it's more exhibitions. It's not like a presentation to sell art like an art fair. It's an exhibition. So there are good exhibitions and there are bad exhibitions.
But it's very interesting for the viewers, of course, because it's really a show. It's not focused on sales. So you really have a interesting program.
Yeah. And I think what's also happening, I mean, it's not necessarily promoting artists from Vienna, because you're asking the curators, and they usually come from abroad, and they bring artists. So it's like also kind of an exchange, or at least coming something from outside. But then you've got those curators in the city, and then they also make the round, and there's like sowing the seed for new connections. So it's actually a pretty big networking event. You bring people into the city, they network in the city with artists, other curators, gallerists, and so on, and then they leave again. And so you kind of, you're creating a lot of new touch points, a lot of new connector points. We've talked so much about Vienna, and I'm trying to find a way of talking a little bit broadly also about success recipes of cities with lively art scenes. And I wonder, Andreas, if you're going on a residency, you're seeing other cities as an artist living somewhere in a place that actually for a couple of weeks or sometimes a couple of months, it actually allows you to connect with a place differently than if you're just going on a city weekend trip, looking at the art scene there. Like, is there any city outside Vienna that impressed you in some way, some things, how the art scene is working there, or something the art scene does for its artists or the art scene goers?
I think it's totally different. Like every city has kind of like a different vibe to it, and it depends a lot on the residency. Because if you just like go to a city, you're not connected to any institution, to anything. You're just there. Maybe you're there for half a year, but you have to do everything on your own, which can be nice, but it's most of the time not really working out. There are amazing residency, for example, like the Austrian government has one residency in New York, which is amazing because it's connected to the ISCP, which is an international curator organized place where you have artists from different countries. That was for me an amazing experience, and especially seeing how, I think it's very interesting for an artist to see how the system runs in different cities. Because every city, there are a lot of similarities, but every city has kind of like its own twist. And to see that is very interesting. And of course, for me, and I think most of my colleagues would accomplish that, it's kind of like it's meeting other artists. That is the main interesting thing about doing a residency. Or I had one residency in Košice, which there was not like a vibrant art scene, but it was really interesting because there were artists from a lot of other places, and I started doing mirrors there because I was not able to buy mirrors, so I had to make them myself, and so a whole new working idea started for me, which I stick to since 8 years now. So it depends, but residencies, I think it's always good to get a feeling for how things work in different cities.
You never had to deal with this, but for an artist from outside of Austria, how does a residency in Vienna look like? What are the possibilities? Because that's also, as you import, so to speak, curators for Curated By, you're importing artists for a while to the city, and also sowing the seed for, like, you know, what's happening in the city, and to get the word round about how great it is to work in a city like Vienna, for that sake.
I think there's a lack of it. I think there's one in the Museumsquartier.
Yeah.
They do a residency program, and then the Belvedere had like the 21 Haus, they had one, but I think that's not existing anymore. I don't know. Like, I think there is not really like a residency program in Vienna. There have been some private.
Weiße Haus? Are they also inviting artists?
I don't know. Actually,
No.
I don't know. Maybe. I know there have been. Yes, they do.
Yeah.
Because, and then there have been in the past, there have been some private initiatives, but I'm the wrong person to ask because
Yeah, like we're all already in Vienna. Yeah, no,
But
I was just curious.
I think that Austria is doing a lot for Austrian artists all over the world, like offering residencies and
Yeah.
stipends
Through the
as
Weiße
well.
Haus that you mentioned, they've got how many locations around the world where they have got fixed buildings or apartments, studios where artists, how many?
It's ton. It's like really, it's a lot.
Dozens, yeah, in all major cities, it's actually quite impressive. And then there's also, yeah, I mean, this is leaving a little bit the art scene as such, but there's also Phileas as a new organization, as a foundation, which is fostering artistic production and helping export projects from Austrian artists abroad. And also, I think they also acquire works regularly and give it to the MUMOC, right?
International artists
from
for Austrian institutions. That's what I understood.
It's sending Austrian artists or helping Austrian artists to realize exhibitions in
abroad,
Biennale somewhere.
Also supporting the Biennale,
and bringing
for example,
international artists to like museum, like institutions in Vienna. I think that's the main concept. And it's a private initiative. So it's
yeah, exactly. Supported by private individuals. Yeah, so that's a very special thing also for the running for the past few years already. Okay. Then I think actually we've talked for a bit more than an hour. I think 2 hours all in all would have been a bit ambitious. We were all like swallowing heavily when we saw that this is like a 2-hour thing, so we didn't want to make it a 2-hour thing from the start. Let's open it for questions. I mean, we've been touching on a lot of topics. It was deliberately the idea that we have different voices from different backgrounds talking about how they perceive a city that has not always been as lively as it is now, and kind of what's happening, what it takes, what the ingredients are. But we're very open to hear your questions, or any or comments or whatever it may be. So if you just, maybe how do we do this? You raise your hand and maybe we bring the micro there. There in the back.
Hello. For me, it was really interesting to hear your thoughts because I'm someone who is slowly getting to know the Viennese scene. So thank you for sharing. My question would be not connected with the Vienna scene, but with the Ljubljana scene. So how well are you familiar with the Slovenian artistic scene? If not, also okay. But if you are, what was the stepping in situation? How did you get familiar with it? To all of you. Thanks.
I studied for a short time with Marina Kricinic at the Academy of Fine Arts. I think she is from Ljubljana. So we've been here on a class excursion, 2005, I would say, yeah. So there's a little bit, and of course I know like art, like Neue Slowenische Kunst was a thing which was kind of, but besides that, no, I was really surprised when I came here today.
Is it your first time in Ljubljana?
It's my second time since 2005, I would say, yeah. No, but I know Marusha because she lives in Vienna, so.
Yeah, so Marusha Sagadin, the artist who has a solo exhibition over there. She's an artist of our gallery, and she used to be she studied in Vienna at the Monica Bonvicini class, and she also used to be the assistant of Monica Bonvicini for a long time. So, but her base was Vienna, and that's how she got connected to the gallery. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think, let's face it, we don't really have a very deep insight in the Ljubljana art scene, I think. That's the upshot.
For me, it's the first time in Ljubljana. So
Yeah, for me too. We arrived 2 hours ago. You maybe should talk again on Sunday.
We were invited to Ljubljana, and we didn't really hesitate long. But yeah, we don't really have a deep insight on what's going on in the art scene here. We also arrived today, partly with heavy traffic and late trains, and so we didn't really get a lot of chance to also explore the city so far, which we'll definitely do tomorrow and day after during the art weekend. But yeah, we were also a little bit hesitant, how to actually position this talk, and because what we certainly didn't want to do was kind of lecturing about Vienna, how great Vienna is, not even knowing the exact conditions in Ljubljana. Therefore, I think that's why I also positioned it in the beginning that Vienna was on a journey, and somewhere on that journey, I was hoping you might connect with what's going on in Ljubljana in some aspects. And it's like, oh yeah, actually, yeah, we were at this point, and oh, interesting that there was this festival like curated by or something that helped Vienna in this way. Yeah, but sorry to not really being able to answer your question in any more detail.
One question, as you're so successful in Vienna, what would be your suggestion, or what are you recommending to Ljubljana? What to do or what not to do? So much experience.
It's difficult without knowing exactly where you are, where you stand. Yeah, very beginning.
Buy art, support the artists, do something, give them space, let them do what they want to do.
That's so simple, sorry.
Yeah. No, but I think what really was a super interesting dynamic that was added to Vienna, and that, as you say, it's already quite some time, 2009, with Curated By. It's because when we talked before the event in preparation to this, Pierre, I think we spoke about this. We said, well, we need to be put on the international map. Ljubljana as an art scene needs to be on the international map, and I think this is what Curated By is doing. To be quite honest, like for me, sometimes personally, I'm not one for an overly discourse-heavy art program, and sometimes Curated By can be a bit discursive and not for everyone. I'm not saying exclusive, but not for everyone. So if that was even a bit more open, you might be even to reach more people. It's also a bit of an industry event, like curators talking to curators a little bit. I'm exaggerating, but this is sometimes how it feels to me. But I think the direction, the route it's taking, the idea of inviting international established curators, people with ambitions to show in another place, bringing new artists, having the connections there, taking it outside the country, the connections continue, I think is a really, really interesting concept. And I think that is something very interesting for every city who wants to be put on an international art scene map. So I think that would be one thing that I think really has worked for Vienna, and I couldn't see why it wouldn't be working in another city.
But also a festival like this Art Weekend here is an amazing idea.
Absolutely.
Great.
I mean, it's the beginning. It's like the first edition. So let's give it, yeah, like have the hope that it will be another successful weekend next year, and it will rise and rise from success to success as the years come. It will not be from one day to the next, but it will, at some point, somebody needs to sow the seed, and I think it's a great initiative you're making with it.
And I think space, I think it's always very important that there's available space. I don't know how the situation is, if it's city-wise, government-wise, private funding things, but for artists, it's very important to have like an affordable space on one hand as a studio space, and on the other hand for exhibitions, self-organized. And I think that's always like a good starting point to get like a vibrant scene going on, because then people can try to do something. Because if you have to pay, I don't know, €1,000 a week for a space, then you're not willing to do something maybe not commercially directly successful. So I think making space available is always a good idea.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, this was one of the things that I decided now not to start as another topic, but it's great it's coming up now with a question that we talk about it. I thought at some point it might be getting a bit much. I think it's like when you talk affordable space, it's at kind of at the fringes also of this whole subsidy system. I mean, it's kind of boring to now look at all the subsidies, but Vienna, actually, it's difficult to say how to learn from it and then just do it because it's all a financial budgetary thing. But Vienna, I think in Austria in general, is kind of a haven or a paradise for subsidies. I mean, everyone coming from Germany cannot believe it for what you are supported in all kinds of, whether you do a book publication, whether you want to open an off space, whether you'd like to participate as a young gallery at an art fair abroad, whether as a magazine, you open a new magazine, like almost, I think practically every magazine in Vienna receives subsidies. It's absolutely amazing how the city tries to lift the wings for people trying to do something in art and culture. And so that's definitely something to look at. I mean, sometimes we are all part of that system, and we all like that it keeps running like this, but sometimes it feels there's almost too much funding for too many things. Like sometimes it's almost, obviously nobody wants to give up on his own funding, but overall it is actually, the city is very, very generous. But I think generally funding is super important, that you can apply for projects. And so I don't know how it looks in Ljubljana with this, but...
I think this is also the reason why some years ago in Vienna all those off spaces could open, because young artists applied for fundings and they also got all these fundings, and they had the possibility to have to open a space that is not a commercial space, which is an amazing opportunity.
And at the time rent was low as well. No longer is that much, but at the time rent was lower. Yeah, that's true. But what I said about the funding is basically there's always a downside of people becoming a bit too complacent and just expecting funding to keep flooding in, and that's maybe the other side of it. But affordable space and funding in the right places, I think is definitely also an important stimulus a city or a community can give. Any other questions?
Yes, actually, I have a question.
Oh, sorry, where?
Where? Yeah. Well, I'll stand up. Hello, thank you for your presentation. Thank you very much also for this great evening. I might just, I'm not quite well acquainted with the concept of curated by, because unfortunately, I missed this first 15 minutes of the presentation, so excuse me if I just got it wrong. But during the presentation, I've formulated two considerations. The first one is that it's kind of very weird from an international point of view to be following a discussion that concerns the non-existence of Ljubljana on the international art map. Of course, if we take it from the perspective of its inhibited art market, we certainly do agree that Ljubljana, from that perspective, is not on that map, while underneath we have to definitely consider that a certain kind of economic and artistic movement since the beginning of 2000, especially connected with the Manifesta journey, and whatever else was then built that also brought Ljubljana to have this wonderful project like Cukrarna means that Ljubljana is on an international map, and not only that it is on an international map, but it is internationally recognized as one of the most important centers for contemporary art in Central Eastern Europe. What I would here maybe just add, which it's not a critique, it's just, I mean, a very, very humble opinion. But what I am, the second point I wanted just to underline is that whether this curated by project, that also is a sort of, you know, machine or some sort of engine of Vienna exists as an empowered machine of making things possible, also thanks to your very, very generous founding systems and the existence of all of these networks that permit this exchange of everything, of artistic practice, research, gallery, and all of, I mean, everything that basically builds the art system. Then my question is, why do you think it is possible to build the bridge with this small yet very international center, Ljubljana Art Center, and Vienna, through generous foundings of your residencies and your sending of your curators within Ljubljana, and through this, of course, through the entire Alpe Adria region, so that we can truly build an exchange, given also that after COVID, post-COVID times, we do need to enhance this kind of collaborations. And it is not just, you know, a kind of suggestion, because, I mean, every kind of business model, it's always enhanced if it's bilateral, not only if someone else mocks a very good, already very well working model. So what is exactly your position if you are coming from a context that, in any case, apparently looks to be something very close to the idea of supporting the growth of this Ljubljana art system? And do you think this bridge, it is indeed possible, given that we are living in 2022, and after Manifesta, the bridge, I mean, I must confess, in terms of the art market system, did not succeed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for all those perspectives. There was a lot of information packed in this. So I'm not, and I think there were a couple of questions put out there, but could you summarize to conclude, like, what is the exact question? I think it was about this, how to bridge between Vienna and a city like Ljubljana.
Okay, very synthetically. The first thing is, well, first, Ljubljana is not a city that is not that is dislocated from the international art world, which means if you have money in Vienna and you are building a very good model in Vienna, yeah, that also is enhancing the art system and the circulation of money also through public and private funding. Do you think there is a chance to build a bridge within this region in order to, you know, make these shifts and I would say these connections possible, so that you will not be visiting, the system will not be visiting Ljubljana every 20 years, but, eventually more often.
Okay. To be honest, I've trouble following how exactly we can answer that question as we sit here on this panel. I'm sorry.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
The art world is a global one, first of all, and just one more thing to add.
The Vienna Contemporary you were mentioning?
Yes, yeah, exactly. Vienna Contemporary, the art fair that has been taking place in Vienna since 10 years, maybe, I don't know, it's a long time, has to focus on Central and Eastern European art. And what I know is that the art fair is also supporting all galleries financially from Eastern and Central Europe, and all other galleries participating have to pay the entire fee. So there is a support. I think that's what you wanted to know, if there is a possibility to support as an Austrian government also other countries, and that's what, for example, Vienna Contemporary is doing since a long time.
Yeah, and building a bridge beyond that, I think it's a very large political, bigger discussion with a lot of actors involved, I think, but we're not in the right place of commenting on this at this point also. At this point in time.
I'm sorry, I just brought my very, very humble considerations
that's
following
absolutely
this
fine.
discussion.
We're just trying to answer the question, and we had trouble doing that. So one last question, maybe, and I think Felicitas, you had a question. Michael coming up.
I just can underline what you said before. I have the pleasure to be here in Ljubljana since 2 or 3 years regularly. And I experience and I learn from a very vibrant scene. And Cukrarna has been built. I mean, this is, also, I didn't experience something like this in Vienna in the last 20 years. And I think especially something like Cukrarna has also effects on the whole town, on the development of the town. There will things happen, and it's like you made now the art weekend, and what I would wish to her is a small mapping of the art scene in Ljubljana like you see it. And for example, today we went to the market to have fish, which is amazing, and I can recommend. And afterwards, I learned from another art space, a new art space opens tomorrow, Note. So I think, and also in Vienna, it's always a question of personal emphasis and work and passion. And I think I met a lot of people here who are completely committed to fine arts, and I'm quite sure that this is a dynamic which will go its way, and not to forget the art universities. And there is here also an art school, and this would be very important, I think, to support or from the town, that the art school gets more visible, maybe, and international. And I completely agree with you. It's space for artists, space for working for artists, and the events will come. And and how they look like then, we'll see. But I'm really positive, to be honest.
Great, thank you. I think these are wonderful closing words, ending on a really, really optimistic note, also really representing the energy that is really at the moment here and of the initiators of the Art Weekend. I think it's a very good place to close our discussion here, and I hope you enjoyed us talking to each other here, and we hope we could at least in parts answer some questions. And so we'll leave it there. Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you.